All right, so you know how this works, right? You set this in, and today it's time for us to take a deep dive into this sermon. It's by Pastor W.F. Kumuyi from the Deeper Christian Life Ministry, and we're gonna break it down just for you. Yeah,
Definitely.
it is. Okay, so this sermon was given at a workers' training meeting, and well, the main illustration it uses is the story of Zacchaeus. To explore salvation and what it means to live a Christian life. And I got to say, one of the things that really struck me about this sermon
Yeah.
is how Pastor Kumuyi makes this ancient story, you know, from the Bible, feel so incredibly relevant to our lives today. Like he's speaking directly to us.
Oh, absolutely. The way he uses such vivid language and examples, it really helps connect the dots between what's going on in the Bible and our lives in the 21st century.
Exactly. So like right off the bat, we're kind of thrown into this scene right, with Zacchaeus, who's like so desperate to see Jesus that he runs ahead of the crowd and climbs a tree. I don't know about you, but it made me think like, has there ever been anything like a concept or an idea or even a person you just like yearn to connect with? You know what I mean?
Oh, totally. That deep desire to understand something or someone, that yearning to connect, it's universal. We've all felt that. And, Pastor Camus makes this really interesting point. He suggests that this kind of deep desire inside us could be God at work, you know? Like God's working in our hearts, getting us ready for salvation.
Wow, that's powerful. And then, there's that moment where Jesus just calls Zacchaeus out by name, even though they've never met. Have you ever had that experience, like when you've just met someone
Hmm.
and they remember some tiny little detail about you? It's like instant connection.
Right. It's like you're suddenly seen and understood. And
Oh,
in
yeah.
that moment, it feels amazing. And that's what Jesus does, right? He acknowledges Zacchaeus as a person, an individual, not just some face in the crowd. It's like, boom, instant connection.
Yeah. And then you see how Zacchaeus reacts. He practically jumps out of that tree. Like he's filled with this incredible joy
Yeah.
and just ready to like grab hold of a new life. It's such a powerful picture of transformation. And it makes you think, is transformation always like a slow, gradual thing?
I don't think so. It can be, but sometimes it's sparked by a single moment, a single event. A new relationship, an experience that completely shifts our perspective. And it's funny because when you think back on your own life, like, weren't there those moments where everything just changed in an instant?
Totally.
Pastor Kumuyi uses Zacchaeus to show us just how powerful that kind of radical shift can be.
Yeah, for sure. But, not everyone's happy about this encounter, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the crowd starts murmuring, criticizing Jesus for even like talking to Zacchaeus, the sinner. It's so frustrating, how people are so quick to judge without even trying to understand the whole story.
You're telling me. I think it's a great example of what happens when we step outside what everyone else thinks is normal. Or when we connect with people who others see as unworthy. You're going to get criticized. But what matters is staying focused on your purpose, just like Jesus did.
It's easier said than done, though.
Oh, absolutely. But look at him. He offered compassion and understanding even when people were judging him. That's a powerful lesson right there.
For sure. And Zacchaeus, he doesn't let the criticism stop him. He's like a changed man. He's like, I'm giving half of everything I have to the poor, and anyone I've ripped off, I'm paying back 4 times what I took. Like, he doesn't back down. He takes responsibility for his past actions.
And I think that's where Pastor Kamui takes this whole message a step deeper. He's like, okay, folks, listen up. Restitution. It's not just about money. Like, what are the ways we can make things right when we've messed up? Outside of just, forking over some cash. How do we repair the damage we've done, rebuild trust, when it's not about dollars and cents?
That's a good question. It's a tough one, for sure. Because sometimes those things we need to make up for, they're not about money at all. Maybe it's a promise we broke or something hurtful we said, or even just neglecting a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
How do you even begin to fix that kind of damage?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it takes a lot of honesty,
Yeah.
and humility and being willing to really put in the work. Sometimes it might mean saying you're sorry, even if it's hard. Or maybe changing your behavior, proving that you really mean it, that you're truly sorry. And sometimes it means making a real effort to rebuild trust. And that can take time.
It really can. I remember this one time when I really let a friend down. It wasn't even about money or anything. I wasn't there for them when they needed me. And to make things right, I had to admit I messed up, apologize, and then really show them through my actions that our friendship was important to me.
That's powerful. And Pastor Kamui, he talks about how important a clear conscience is for our spiritual growth. He uses this really intense image talking about a conscience being seared with a hot iron. It's like, if we keep ignoring our conscience, our hearts can become hardened. and we become less sensitive to the pain we cause others and even ourselves.
Wow, that's heavy. Makes you realize that real transformation isn't just about what we do on the outside.
Right.
It's also about that inner peace, that integrity.
Exactly.
It's about making sure our actions line up with what we believe,
Absolutely.
and striving to live in a way that shows that real change is happening within us.
And I think it's important to remember that transformation isn't like a one and done kind of thing. It's a process, it's ongoing. We're going to stumble, make mistakes along the way. The important thing is to be honest with ourselves and with God, to admit when we've messed up and then seek forgiveness and healing.
That's so true. But Pastor Kamui doesn't just stop at making amends for the past, does he? He goes on to talk about this idea of transferable love,
Mm.
like how Jesus transfers his love to his followers, enabling them to love others in the same way.
Yeah.
That same radical, transformative love. It's beautiful, but honestly, putting that into practice can feel so hard.
It is challenging. It's especially when the world can feel so cynical and divided. But I think that's exactly why this message is so important. He's not saying it's easy, but he's calling us to a higher standard of love, one that goes beyond just our natural instincts and reflects the love Christ has for us.
One thing that really stood out to me was when he talked about Zacchaeus. He wasn't just waiting for the poor to come begging to him. He actively sought them out. He was eager to share his wealth. It wasn't about feeling obligated. It was spontaneous, heartfelt generosity.
I love that example. It really shows what transformed love looks like in action. And then Pastor Kamui, he contrasts that with the sin of Sodom, how their pride and indifference to the suffering around them ultimately destroyed them.
Right, right. He even connects this back to our own prayer lives, right?
Right.
He suggests that our prayers should reflect this outward focus. It's not just about praying for ourselves, but including the needs of others, showing that same compassion.
It's such a subtle shift, but it's so profound. He's asking us to really examine our prayers. Are they mostly about us, our own little world? Or are they filled with genuine concern for others? It's a powerful challenge to move beyond just ourselves and embrace a more expansive view of love.
Yeah, it really makes you stop and think, doesn't it? Like, how often are we just focused on our own little bubble?
Yeah.
But Pastor Kamui's pushing us to look beyond that,
Mhm.
to let that love kind of spill out into the world around us.
Absolutely. And he ties this idea of outward-focused love to the importance of sharing our faith. It's not about forcing our beliefs on anyone, but having that genuine care for others, wanting them to experience that same joy, that same freedom that we found.
He's really clear, though, that just knowing what's right isn't enough.
Right.
We have to actually do something. He says, be doers of the word and not hearers only.
Mm.
Like, get up and do something. Don't just sit around and agree. Let that change, that power flow through us.
He uses that parable of the talents, remember? Where each servant's given different amounts and told to occupy till I come. It's this reminder that we all have unique gifts, abilities, and we're accountable for what we do with them. Like, we're not supposed to just sit around waiting for Jesus to come back. We're supposed to be actively building his kingdom right here, right now.
It's like we're stewards of what we've been given.
Mm.
And using those talents to help others and fulfill God's purpose. And he reminds us that we're not alone in this, right? Just like Jesus sent out his disciples, he's given us that same mission.
Exactly. We're called to be his hands and feet, his voice in the world, sharing his love and compassion with everyone we meet. And, Pastor Kamui really stresses this point. That love, it has to be more than just words.
Actions speak louder than words.
It's about how we treat others, the choices we make every single day.
He talks about loving not just in word, but in deed and in truth. It's about being there for people, meeting their needs, offering support and encouragement, putting our beliefs into action, real, concrete acts of service.
It's about truly reflecting the love of Christ, not just saying it, but living it in a way that's real and makes a difference. It's a tall order, but, we're empowered to do it through the love and grace we receive from him.
Man, this deep dive has been amazing. Pastor Kamui's message is powerful. It's challenging. He reminds us that real transformation, it's not just outward actions. It's a change of heart. It affects every part of our lives.
It really does.
It's a journey of continuously going deeper, understanding God's love more and more, and letting that love shape everything we do.
And as we try to live out our faith authentically, to love boldly, to serve generously, and to share that good news with others, I think the story of Zacchaeus is so inspiring. If someone like him, considered a sinner, could have such a radical transformation, then there's hope for all of us, right?
Absolutely. It shows us that no one is beyond the reach of God's grace. So as we wrap up today, I keep coming back to this question that Pastor Kumi asked. If Jesus were to call on you today, What would you do? Would you be ready? Like Zacchaeus, ready to come down, embrace a new life?
It's a powerful question to think about.
It is. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We hope this gave you a lot to chew on, something to apply to your own life. Until next time, keep seeking, keep learning, and keep exploring the depths of your faith.